Hi Ika, thanks for doing this interview with us today. We're grateful to have some of your time at the Medical Cannabis Summit Water. How did you find the event so far?
I found it pretty informative. It's been a great event. I met a lot of people, seen a lot more than I anticipated. It's interesting to see how the space is growing and the diversity in terms of different countries being involved within the cannabis space.
So for those who don't know, what is your current role within the cannabis space? What brought you here today?
So I am a conference manager with the London Canna Group, which is a London consultancy firm that helps with CBD startups, but as well I am co-founder for the Cannabis in Color, which is striving to encourage visible minorities into the cannabis space.
Brilliant. And can I just ask, why did you set up the companies? What got you involved with the companies?
So for London Canna Group, I do a lot more event management in terms of encouraging proper education surrounding cannabis, medicinal cannabis. And then with Cannabis in Color, I've seen that there's a lack of diversity within cannabis spaces, and to encourage minorities and to give them the information that they need in order to remove the barriers that prohibit them or prohibit them into pursuing a career, pursuing certain aspects of the medical cannabis space.
Since being involved in the cannabis industry, what are some of the most difficult challenges you would say that you've faced?
I would say that as a woman of color, especially, I find that there's a lot of hurdles that you have to face. In terms of always having to prove yourself or proving that you deserve to be in these spaces. For me, coming from a Jamaican background, cannabis has always been part of my culture to a certain extent. However, I feel like now I need to always tell people that, this is my credentials or this is how long I've been in these spaces, which can be very difficult because I know there's a lot of people that are in the space that are not qualified. And as someone who is qualified, it can kind of be hurtful, I guess you would say, to always being questioned about who I am and why I deserve to be in these spaces.
Can you tell us about a few other events that you've been to or that are due to come up that you're involved in?
So as conference manager, we have 3 events that are coming up in 2020. We're responsible and we host the Europe Canna Expo. We hosted one in July of 2019 at London Excel, and we're going to be hosting also in Dublin from March the 3rd and 4th to 2020 in the Shelbourne. And then London Excel, we're going to have it to be our flagship event, and that will be from the 26th to 27th of June 2020. And then we're also going to be doing an event in Zagreb, Croatia for October the 15th and 16th, 2020.
Brilliant. So you've got a lot going on and coming up.
So much.
So how do you view the current cannabis space in the EU, especially the UK? What would you say are the challenges that need to be most focused on now?
I think the focus needs to be on more patients and medical professionals, clinicians in the space to monopolize these conversations. I feel like it's becoming a very capitalistic industry, which when it becomes so capitalistic, you're straying away from the actual point of medicinal cannabis, which is to benefit for patients. So I feel like that's what the scene is. I'm hoping that they do not replicate what's going on in Canada and the United States, and they make it more patient-focused. And I think that's where it needs to be.
And what are your views on the future of the cannabis space globally? Do you feel that both recreational and medical are both instrumental in the growth of the industry?
Yes, I think that they play hand in hand. Of course, there needs to be more priority to medicinal patients. However, we cannot forget that there's a recreational market, and there's always been a recreational market for cannabis. I think that there needs to be an actual definitive on what is medicinal cannabis and what is recreational, because everyone has their own perspectives on it, and it may be the wrong perspective on what medicinal and recreational cannabis is. With that being said, globally, I believe that it can actually act as emancipation for financial despair for a lot of countries. And I'm hoping that there's going to be equal opportunities for everyone to get into the medicinal cannabis space. and the cannabis space in general as well. But there is going to be a lot of hope, and it's going to be a vantage point for a lot of countries.
And would you say that you're a recreational advocate, medical advocate, or both?
And both.
Both.
Yes, definitely both.
Okay. How important do you feel responsible marketing is in driving more adoption of the cannabis market?
I think that education is center. It's the central point of it. If there's miseducation, there's miscommunication. That's how stigma comes into play, and that's what you notice with a lot of people is that word stigma is being always associated to cannabis, and that's always because of a disinformation and misinformation of what cannabis is, what its potentials are, and the harms as well that are being associated with it.
Thank you. And how important do you feel responsible influencer marketing is in spreading the word? So when we say responsible, we mean how important is it that the influencers are both educated on the safety use of cannabis products?
I think it's primal. I think that within looking at influencers, within looking at media, that the education, like I said before, is very important. It is what's going to drive cannabis, and it's also what cannot drive, that won't be able to get cannabis to where it needs to be in years to come.
Do you feel that we should be looking at more ways of using raw cannabis as opposed to mixing with other chemicals or synthetic chemicals?
Yeah, I actually do. I don't believe personally in the synthetic cannabinoids being used. They've been using the plant for over tens of thousands of years without using synthetic cannabinoids. If we can avoid it at any cost, I feel like we need to.
Brilliant, thank you. A bit more of a personal question here. Are you a cannabis user yourself? You can put a disclaimer in if you need to.
I am a medicinal cannabis patient. I use it for fibromyalgia as well as anxiety and depression.
Brilliant. Last question. So aside from your own, what major projects or movements are you supporting or would you like to see happening within the industry right now?
I feel like there needs to be a push in encouraging minorities, visible minorities, those that are disabled, and all types of forms of marginalities to be more included within these spaces. I feel like it's becoming monopolized by capitalistic structures, and that needs to stop. The plant in itself has such a rich history in so many different cultures in terms of traditional indigenous communities, and those communities in themselves have always been marginalized. And then those are the ones that are also being excluded out of these spaces, and they have the most valuable information about this plant. So I feel like those movements towards supporting vulnerable groups is very, very important within the cannabis space.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your time today and good luck for your future ventures.
Thank you so much. Bye.